There are unfortunately a number of things that conjure the illusion of saving money and living more frugally. And these are oftentimes things that appear to be the cheaper option and make more sense on the surface. When I first started to live more minimally, I fell for these things that claimed to save me more money, but were actually encouraging consumerism in a more sneaky way. The things I'm going to talk about today, like bulk buying and rewards programs, might make sense in some cases, but for me personally, it encouraged me to spend more, consume more, and ultimately go against exactly what I was trying to do in the first place, which is live more minimally and more frugally. Here are things that pretend to save you money, but don't. But first, if you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. Here we talk about minimalism, frugal living, tech, and things of that nature. So if that sounds good to you, and you end up liking the video, be sure to like, and please promise the subscribe button you'll show them a really good movie, and then force them to watch Happy Gilmore 2. Let's get started. I just wanted to reiterate one more time that I'm speaking from my own personal experience, and there may be times that some of these things might make sense for some people in some cases. Starting with the first one, which is annual sales. And when I say annual sales, I'm speaking about events like Black Friday and Prime Day, which is now several weekends a year, it seems like. I was absolutely guilty of feeling the FOMO on these days in the past. These annual sales shamelessly encouraged me to buy things I never needed, by trying to create this false sense of manufactured urgency. And from what I do remember, the things I would buy on Prime Day were always spontaneous or impulsive. It was just never something I really needed. So regardless of whatever discount was applied, it just wasn't a great use of my money. Since adopting a more frugal and minimal lifestyle, it's quite literally like I cut these holidays out of my life, and the decision of whether or not I'm buying something is made way before these days arrive, which is usually not. Ultimately saving me money and keeping the clutter to a minimum. Next is rewards programs. I usually feel like rewards programs are just more trouble than they're ever worth. And in my experience, it would always require me to spend an amount of money I normally never would to either get a discount or a reward that was actually even worth it. A perfect example of this is this credit card I used to have a few years ago. It had some decent cashback rewards whenever I purchased certain things, but it had an annual fee of $95 a year, which I would absolutely never do at this point. I remember sitting down to do the math and learned that I would have to spend around $20,000 a year on travel to have any type of real benefit and return from this credit card. I know this might be an extreme example, but if you look at things like restaurant or retail store rewards programs and the rewards they offer, it's rarely ever something that's actually worth it. Without even really noticing it, these rewards programs subconsciously would influence my decision where to shop or eat just because I wanted a small discount or some sort of return on what I spent. The next thing is bulk buying. Bulk buying for me personally is something that only really rarely makes a lot of sense, but in the context of pretending to save me more money, it's usually just encouraging me to pay more and consume or obtain more than I need, at least in that moment. There are times I've definitely bulk purchased for specific household items or groceries, but I noticed I was really addressing the wrong problem and decided to look at it from a different angle. Instead of bulk buying to save me from a future trip to the store, I chose to just consume a little bit less. Like I said, mostly in terms of food or other household consumables. When I cleaned up my diet, for example, I was buying much more produce, which, if I wanted it to stay fresh, shouldn't be purchased in bulk. And by proxy, this led to a little bit more of a healthier lifestyle, as well as helped with spending habits. The next one is buy one, get one deals. Buy one, get one deals is sort of piggybacking off of bulk buying, but is really in a category of its own when it comes to pretending to save you money. And I honestly think a huge part of that is just the fact that free is in its name, creating this small sense of win whenever something is bought. Once again, what actually ended up happening for me is I often just bought more than I initially needed to qualify for this air quotes deal I was getting. And if you live in the South or have been to a Publix, you'll know exactly what I mean. The prices are marginally higher than other stores, getting you to just go there for that buy one, get one deal, but spending a lot more money than you actually have to everywhere else in the store. It encourages a lot more spending and leaving the store with a lot more than I even planned on purchasing in the first place. The next thing here is the cheaper option. Purchasing the higher quality item is usually a hill I'll die on in regards to saving money in the long term. Because purchasing the cheaper option in most cases is almost by definition pretending to save money in the long run. The best example I could think of from my own experience is my camera's tripod. Years ago, I purchased a cheap $30 tripod that just broke way too early into me owning it. And because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on one, I purchased it again and then a third time before I finally learned my lesson. The quality was just horrible and all of them ended up breaking. I could have had a far better quality one in the beginning if I just not been so cheap, especially with something that I use and need for work. Because if anywhere, I think this is one of the last places to be cheap if I absolutely have to. I'm sure a more relatable example for everyone is when booking a cheap flight, only to realize there are more fees for every bag you bring as soon as you're checking out. My overall point is that the option labeled as the most affordable isn't always just that and may actually cost more money at the end of the day. Future-proofing technology. This is a point I've only ever touched on in the past, but definitely think could be elaborated on. I make videos about tech here on this channel rather often, and it's usually the same exact tech because I refuse to upgrade if I can help it. But in those videos, I will occasionally get comments asking about getting what I have or wanting a newer model. And my answer for that will usually be the same: to just get whatever you can afford. Companies will always advertise their technology as the end-all be-all for whatever our needs are. But unfortunately, the planned obsolescence of everything is pretty set in stone. I don't believe there is any real future-proofing when it comes to purchasing technology because they're realistically probably years ahead of whatever they're selling us, and we will never be satisfied with what we have if we adopt this mentality. My point is here that attempting to future-proof my technology at one point had me believing it would save me from spending more money in the future, when in reality I was just sold the same lie every year when new technology was released. Technology is something we will probably as consumers never be caught up with. There will be a newer, better version every single year coming out, and this is something that absolutely pretends to save you money. I do read and respond to the comments on my videos, so let me know if I missed anything that could absolutely be on this list. And I apologize for my voice. I have allergies and I have major jet lag, so I've been staying up till about 4 a.m. every single night this week. Anyways, as always, I appreciate the time you spent here and I appreciate you watching. With that being said, if you did like this video and you like this type of content, be sure to like and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you next time.